ahead and whenever I'll give it to you, I can pin your video. Okay, sweet. We are live.
And I'll go to. Okay.
Nice. So how's
Yeah.
things?
What?
So I was gonna ask how are things going outside of meetup stuff with the new company?
Good now. I mean, I will say, I got laid off twice during the pandemic, so that wasn't too much fun. But
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying where I'm at now. Foundation medicine. We take people who are late stage cancer and have been given the say your goodbyes, and we do genomic analysis of their particular cancer and give them targeted treatments, and people live. So it's
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and so whenever we have company meetings, part of it is we have testimonials from people who aren't dead, and and it didn't get better than that. I mean, last time we had a guy who had stage 4 pancreatic cancer in 2014, and that's generally a death sentence, and he's still around.
Yeah. Yeah. The testimonial was like, well, I'm still alive, so it's like, I guess we did a pretty good job then. That's incredible.
Right. So it's very, very cool, but also, yeah, no pressure.
Yeah.
If something doesn't work or it takes too long, person. I mean, quite literally, the person can die. So it's very, very cool, and it's high stakes.
Yeah, high stress, high reward. Yeah, I feel like you're actually doing some good work in the world, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So for anybody on the live stream, we're just kind of chit-chatting right now, getting ready to start into the talk. I wanted to give a couple of minutes for people to roll in. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything else, we could probably just kick it off here, and I could pass it over to you. So today we have a talk with Brian Tarbox, who's a fellow AWS hero, and going to go deeper into some Alexa skills and maybe show us how to build one. I've never done anything with Alexa skills. I'm pretty excited about this.
Okay. You want me to take over?
Yeah, I could go ahead and pass it over to you. I'll pin your screen. I'm going to get myself off a video. And let's see. Oops. Oh gosh, get the Zoom set up. Speaker. All right, and you should be good to go.
Okay, cool. So, hello, I'm Brian Tarbox. I'm a community hero, which just means that I talk a lot. My wife said it's not a surprise you got that, Brian. But she said that with love. I also run the Boston AWS Meetup, and I've got a variety of the certifications. I did manage to get the Alexa certification before Amazon discontinued it. Some of us are pretty annoyed that they discontinued it, but what are you going to do? So I'm not doing an actual regular screen share. I'm actually using OBS to set up this multi-screen, multi-camera setup. So instead of looking for a screen share, best bet is just to pin my my Zoom image. If you have questions, please jump in. Interactive is great. Alexa is kind of a different thing, so all questions are interesting. So with that, let me switch to this. So and if you're interested in figuring out how to do a video like this, you can go to my webpage, briantarbox.org, and under presentations, I've got a 4-minute prezzo on how to do OBS, how to add the little my image here, I'm pointing another camera to Alexa's over there, and then on the other side I've got a screen. So anyway, so let's talk about Alexa. The gist of this talk is making a more engaging skill. And what that comes down to is that at a certain level, well, and I will say in my household, we say Amanda, because if we say if we say Alexa, I've got about 14 devices that might answer. So we say, if I say Amanda, I'm referring to the system. If I say Alexa, I actually want Alexa to respond. So at a certain level, we know that Alexa is just a computer. But we try to avoid that. We like to say please and thank you. And there are people for whom, especially during this COVID time of shut-in, where Alexa might be one of the few people that some people are talking to. But if we ask, Alexa, are you a person?
I'm not a person. I'm an AI.
Okay. So, interestingly, and you'll discover during this talk that I'm a big Battlestar Galactica fan. Alexa, are you a Cylon?
I like to imagine myself a bit like an aurora borealis, a surge of charged, multicolored photons dancing through the atmosphere.
Okay, that wasn't really an answer, so maybe she's a Cylon. But, so the whole point of making a more personable skill is what we call the willing suspension of disbelief. I remember as a kid in school, the first time they were showing us a sort of a sci-fi movie. I mean, I think it actually was a werewolf movie, and I'm not sure why they were showing us a werewolf movie in elementary school. I should go back and find out about that. But the idea was, they said, don't worry about the fact that we know it's not true. Willingly suspend your disbelief. Alexa, is Star Trek real? Alexa, is Star Trek real?
Dilithium is not a real element.
Okay. Alexa, is Star Wars real?
Ships don't go whoosh in a vacuum.
And then the key question, Alexa, is Battlestar Galactica real?
Yes, it is. This has all happened before and will happen again. So say we all.
Okay. Sorry, that's just, all of my talks have to involve a Battlestar Galactica reference. But the idea is that we talk to Amanda as if it was a person, even though we know it's not. And Amazon itself has gone to great lengths to help reduce that barrier, to make us not see the fourth wall of the theater if you're a theater person. So we go to great lengths as skill writers to maintain the illusion. So some of the things that Amazon itself has done is they've added whisper mode, because one of the things that if you have a house that's controlled, where your lights are controlled by Amanda, and it's, you're coming to bed late at night and your spouse might be asleep, and you say, Alexa, turn off the lights, and Alexa says, okay, that's a problem. So they added this mode where if you whisper, Alexa will whisper back. Alexa, what time is it? Well, you couldn't even hear it, but there's that. So it tries to respond in a similar way that you asked. Another example of that is follow-on mode. And let's just cut to the chase about Alexa and always listening. The device, the hardware devices are always listening, but it's on an 8-second loop, and it's maintaining an 8-second buffer looking for the wake word, which can either be Alexa, Echo, or computer. And the processing for that wake word is all done locally, which is why you can't just add any old wake word that you want. So that processing is local. So yes, Amanda is listening all the time, but it's not sending that information up to the cloud all the time. So it's listening for a very specific amount of time. Now, when they first started with these devices, people would say, Alexa, what's the weather? And Alexa would...
In Littleton, it's 55 degrees Fahrenheit with clear
Alexa,
skies.
Stop. I fall into that trap of using the real word. And I muted it, so now I can say Alexa. you say, Alexa, what's the weather? Alexa would tell you the weather, and then it would stop. It had finished, so it would stop listening, and then lots of people would say thank you, and then get annoyed that Alexa wasn't responding. So they added follow-on mode, so that you can say thank you, and Alexa will often say you're welcome or some random phrase. And there's been a great debate about whether you need to be polite to clearly robotic devices. And the sort of winning argument or the current thinking is we talk to these devices so much that patterns that we have with them tend to bleed over into our discussions with actual physical people. So if you're rude to your robots, you're likely to be rude to people. So we try to be as polite as we can to the robots. And hopefully when they take over, they'll decide who to kill and who not to kill based on who was polite or not. So, and hopefully that's not true. Now, let me tell you about my particular skill that I'm going to be talking to you about, which is called Premier League. Besides science fiction, I'm a huge fan of British football. We don't say the soccer word in my house. That's not a word we're allowed to use. So I'm a huge fan of Premier League football, and I wrote a skill that lets you ask questions about Premier League. And originally, I just wrote it for myself, and then it eventually started getting popular. And if you look down, oops, let me go down to my other screen. If you look here, you'll see that for last month I had nearly 19,000 invocation, which is pretty good. And it's actually gotten to the point where my Prem skill has been designated what Amazon calls a high engagement skill. So they write me a check every month. Now it's a little check, mind you, but it's still a check going in the correct direction, and so that's pretty handy. So I actually have a good incentive to try to make people come back to the skill. I'll give you an example, and we'll just use the regular device. Alexa, open Premier League.
Welcome to Premier League. Say get table, or say a team name.
Liverpool.
You asked about Liverpool. Their form is 7th place with 14 wins, 7 draws, 9 losses, 51 goals scored, 36 goals allowed, for a goal difference of plus 15, and 49 points. What can we tell you about Premier League? You can also ask about referees.
Sheffield.
Last week's results were: Wolves lost to West Ham 3-2.
Alexa,
Everton
stop.
drew Crystal Palace.
So there's an
Okay,
example.
hope to see you next time.
Well, that's embarrassing. That's the demo gods for you. I asked about Sheffield, and it started to tell me last week's results. So that can happen. But one of the tricks with the Premier League skill is that there are about 17 different verbs you can ask. You can ask about, as we saw here, you can ask about teams, results, fixtures, the table. If you're not used to that term, that's the table is what Premier League calls standings. You can ask about relegation. That's the bottom 3 teams in the league drop down to a different league each year, and on the lower league, 3 teams come up. And then there's a whole bunch of statistics: touches, tackles, fouls, red cards, yellow cards, referees, and so on. And so one of the tricks with a voice skill is, how do you tell people what all the choices were or are? If this was just a GUI, you'd have a standard drop-down of all your choices. So like right here, this is a standard drop-down, and you can look at all of these things. But you don't want, in a voice system, you don't want to be giving people a long list of things, because they won't remember and they won't listen, and they just get annoyed. So how do you tackle this problem? Well, I handle it with a set of suggestions. So I have a list of the 17 or so verbs that you can ask. Every time you ask a question to Alexa, every time you ask a question, what the device processes your question, sends it to the cloud, it gets turned into an intention, and then that intention is sent to a Lambda that you write. So when you're writing an Alexa skill, there's two parts. There's the voice model, and we'll show that in a little bit. And then there's the Lambda that responds to the voice model, and I'll show you that code as well. And as you go back and forth, each interaction is actually a separate invocation of the Lambda. But you can send information in the session object so that your Lambda can see what's gone on. And so I start with the list of all the possible verbs that you might ask about. And then as you ask about them, I offer a suggestion of something else you could do. So we'll do it again, but you may have noticed that when I said Liverpool, it said, Liverpool's form is blah, blah, blah. What would you like to know? You can also ask about yellow cards, I think it said. So for each time you ask the question, it tells you a little bit more about the things you could do. And if you've asked about yellow cards, it's not going to suggest yellow cards because you figured that out. So over time, the system progressively discloses to you what the options are, so that you can learn, so that a new person can learn how to use the system. And since I'm only giving one suggestion at a time, an experienced user doesn't have to wade through all those suggestions. So it basically learns as you go. So that's a pretty cool feature. And part of the thing too is when I write a new verb for the system, I want people to use it. And so, I want to tell them that there is this extra verb they could ask, because I want people to get the most information they can possibly get from it. Another thing that we do, so that's one thing. When you're talking to a person, I'll jump back. When you're designing a voice dialogue, one of the things you want to do is practice the voice dialogue with another person. And you wouldn't say, Austin, would you like to know about red cards or yellow cards or touches or tackles or fouls or blah, blah, blah. And, Austin would get annoyed at that. Anyone would get annoyed at that. So you try to model your system. You can test your system by modeling it with a person. Along those same lines, we don't answer even the same question. We don't answer the same way every time. So actually, let me show you some of the code for this. So whenever let's see, let me go down to, and hopefully you can read this. I've made the font a little bit bigger, but if we look at line 39, and I won't highlight it because that makes it a little harder to read. But you see that I have this thing, varied prompts. So I always ask the user this in addition to a suggestion, but I say it several different ways. I say get table, say get table or say team name, or I say ask about the table or a team, or I say what can we tell you about Premier League, or I say what can I tell you about teams to the table. It's the same information that I'm providing, or that Amanda's providing, but I'm saying it to you in several different ways. Just like if someone said, how are you doing? You might say, fine. But if you said fine all the time, people would probably stop asking you. You want to have some interaction. So whenever this skill interacts with the user, there's a bit of randomness to it. And so there's the varied prompts. We'll then look down at some examples So here's another one. Here's my goals handler. And so remember when I said that the device will process the question, send it up to the cloud, and determine an intent, and then call the Lambda. This is the code that is called after the system believes that you asked about goals. Okay. And you can see even here, I have goal phrases. The players with the most goals are, the highest scorers are, the top scorers are. So since we've got 17 different verbs and at least 3 different ways of answering each question, the notion is that you will get a different set of verbal interactions every time you interact with the system. And let's see, we go to, let me go down and show you some more examples of that, because you want to, in all cases, you want to not seem like you're a computer. And let me just find, so we go to great lengths to pluralize. So, have you scored 1 goal, or have you scored 2 goals? Little things like that. And here you see is my list of suggestions. I can ask you all these various questions, and then I have a little function that just randomly picks which one of the suggestions to give. Scrolling down a little bit more. Oh, excitement! Yes, excitement. Let's try this, and listen for the pattern. Alexa, ask Premier League about the table.
The first 5 teams in the table are first place Manchester City with 74 points, second place Manchester United with 60 points, third place Leicester City with 56 points, fourth place West Ham United with 52 points, fifth place Chelsea with 51 points. Would you like to hear more?
No.
Ask about the table or a team. You can also ask about relegation.
Relegation.
The teams currently facing relegation are 18th place Fulham with 26 points, 19th place West Bromwich Albion with 21 points, 20th place Sheffield United with 14 points. What can we tell you about Premier League? You can also ask about touches.
Alexa, stop.
Okay, hope to see you next time.
So there's a couple takeaways from that I hope you noticed. You notice that Alexa was very excited about, Alexa was very excited about the top teams. Manchester City has 23 wins. And then when I talked about relegation, which is the teams that are probably going to fall right out of the league, Sheffield United has 2 wins and 13 points. That lets us, this is actually the code that does that, and Amazon added that capability about a year ago now. So you can add essentially inflections, emotions. So you can say, I have an emotion and I am excited, and I might be a lot excited or I might be a little excited, or I could be disappointed and I could be a little disappointed or a lot disappointed. And so I've set it up, this is a very simple function, 10 lines, 10, 15 lines, so that the top teams are always excited, but a little bit varied excitement, but pushing towards high. And then the middle teams get some excitement, but not a lot, or maybe some disappointment. And then the bottom teams get a lot of disappointment. But again, it's varied, so you should never get the same thing multiple times. The other thing you may have noticed is when I asked about the table, it gave me the first 5 listings, and then it asked me if I wanted more. So there's actually 20 teams in the table. So it could have given me 20 responses. But it's very likely that I don't want to hear the whole table. I might want to ask about my particular team, or I might want to talk about who's at the top or who's at the bottom. But the middle bits, maybe I don't care about. And so this is another part of the voice interaction approach is say a little and ask if they want more. Say a little, ask if you want more. it's like if a waiter or waitress in a restaurant, started listing off the specials, and if there were 42 specials, you would not want them to list off the whole bunch. You wouldn't want to get to the end of the 42 item list and say, what was the second one? Or that's okay, I already saw the special, or that's okay, I already knew what I was going to order. So you want to add, you want to give little bits of information along the way. So that's another way we can make it more interesting. And we can strip the motion. Let's just see. Okay. And I can make all this code available, but essentially I put each of the verbs, or most of the verbs, have a data file that lives in S3 that I just process, and I've set it up so that you can see this function has article, first column, second column, third column. It lets me design a voice interaction to say different things based on the data file. So if we go back up towards the, let's see, if we go back up towards the top, and let me just find one of the samples. So right here, you see this on line 431. I've said speech is based on these several phrases that I build together, and then put that in with a random prompt and send it back out to the user. Oh, actually, random phrasing. Okay. So the idea is that we randomize as much as possible. So now let's look at that's on the speaking out. Now let's look at the voice dialogue side of things. And we'll get to the metrics. Metrics are really quite interesting, and I really like them because the skill is doing so well. But let's go to build. Okay, so we're going to have the interaction model. So that was just the Lambda. Now let's look at the interaction model. So we have 21 intents or intentions, and some of them are built in. So some of these are started prefixed with Amazon. So there's always cancel and help and yes and no and stop and start and so on. And then we have these down here. We're getting to the list of intentions that I wrote. And if you look here under utterances, it has how many different ways can you ask the question. So let's look at clean sheets. And if you don't know real football, a clean sheet just means you didn't get scored upon. And so I have 4 different ways of asking that. I can just say clean sheets. Okay. Who has clean sheets? Which goalkeepers got the clean sheets? And my son will kill me for having goaltenders, because I used to be a hockey goalie, and hockey goalies are goaltenders. Football goalies are goalkeepers. But I sometimes say tender just to annoy my son, because I'm that kind of guy. So the idea is that you build up all of these different ways of saying a thing, and then Amazon behind the scene built up a voice model to figure out what you actually said, because human speech is varied and different, and we don't always say things the very, very similar way, which is why when you're on like a telephone tree, they don't generally say, hey, what's going on? What do you want to know about? They're looking for a specific keyword, and so they'll say, do you want refills, or do you want to get, if you're calling pharmacy, it'll say, do you want refills, or do you want to know the hours? So they're giving you a specific set of things that they can narrow it down, because it's hard to tell what people are saying. Fixtures, I actually came up with a whole bunch of different ways to say them. What are the upcoming games? What are the next games? What are the next matches? Because some people call them matches, some people call them fixtures. So you want to handle all the different ways that a person might ask for the thing. We then have slots. So one of the slots is what team are you asking for? Okay, because you might be asking for Liverpool, you might be asking for Arsenal. Hopefully you're not asking for Arsenal. Again, my son is not a big Arsenal fan. If you're an Arsenal fan, I'm sorry. Actually, I'm sorry for you, but that's okay. So we see here, these are the various canonical team names. You know, Manchester United, Manchester City, and so on. But that's not the only way someone would ask for it. Someone who likes Manchester United would just call them Man U. And so I offer this as a synonym. If you say Man U, I know you meant Manchester United. Aston Villa, you know, their motto is the Lions, or, you know, the Villains, or the Villa. So, you know, Fulham is the Cottagers. West Brom is the Baggies. Throssels, I actually haven't heard anyone say that lately. You know, Tottenham Hotspurs, the team that we follow, is Spurs or Hotspurs or Tottenham. People generally don't say Tottenham Hotspurs. But the idea is that you could say all different things, and we would know what you meant, and we would translate it for you. So again, with the let's see if the demo gods are being good to us. Alexa, ask Premier League about Tottenham Hotspur.
You asked about Tottenham Hotspur. Their form is 6th place with 14 wins, 7 draws, 9 losses, 51 goals scored, 32 goals allowed, for a goal difference of plus 19, and 49 points. Ask about the table or a team. You can also say yellow card.
Alexa, stop. Now notice that on this,
Hope to see you next
on this
time.
display, I've put, in addition to the text that the system read, whoops. Okay, I'm not sure what that was. Oh, there we go again. So I displayed an image of the Spurs logo. So that I wrote this skill before there were screen-based devices, but now that there are screen-based devices, if you can, it's very handy to put an image up on the screen, just so you know, people find that more engaging. And I will say that I have paid for all the images that I use, because that would be bad not to. So let's go back and look at monitoring. And again, if there are questions at any point, you know, please jump in. So this is summary. You know, how many users, how many maximum users, how many new users, and so on. But then there's all kinds of things you can look at. This one is really, I think, quite fascinating. This is the interaction path. So this says, lots of people come in and ask for fixtures. And then lots of them just say stop, okay? But some of them, after going to fixtures, go to results. And some of those people then go to stop. And often they keep asking about results, which is kind of interesting. If you ask for relegation, you might go to stop. If you go to relegation, you might go to reprompt. And you know, then there are all these others. So it's interesting to see what's going on. One of the things that shocked me was how few times people are asking things like golden boot. It was just surprising, having gone to the effort of putting all these 17 verbs, to see that people weren't necessarily using all of them. Let's see if we can go to some more. So you can see they give you all these patterns that you can look at and see what's going on. Failed utterances per intent. I am really pleased to see that blank, because there aren't any. You can look at the response pattern. So this is also kind of interesting, in that real-time is different with people, and I call this soft real time. I mean, you generally have, about 100, 150 milliseconds after you ask a question before a user gets annoyed if they're not getting a response. And so you can see here, my P50 is under 100 milliseconds, and even my P90 is 113 milliseconds, so that's not too bad. And the last data point is usually wrong because it's a partial data point. Now, one of the things I noticed is when I added the images, my response latency went up because the Lambda had to go to S3 and pull an image. So I then added CloudFront, which is the first time I had played with CloudFront, and that's basically a caching system to speed up retrieval of things like images, and so then my response time went back down, which was great. Failed responses down here at 0. That is awfully nice. Friction is something that they've added recently, and we're trying to. I'm actually trying to get a handle from Amazon on what exactly they mean by friction. But one of the things is down here says frequent utterances for perceived friction, and so you'll see that a lot of this sometimes you notice I said stop, and that goes to the stop intent. But some people are saying off, some people are saying cancel, some people are actually saying shut up or turn off, and those go to stop. And this is actually a really interesting one that just showed up recently. Someone asked for Justice League, and this is not a Justice League skill. This is a skill about Premier League football. So it's kind of interesting that someone asked about Justice League, and the friction was high because the system understood that it had nothing to do with that. So, but most of these, the friction is low, which means the system is doing okay. And then barge-ins is when you interrupt the system in the middle. So if you're reading a long list and someone says stop in the middle, that's a barge-in. And that's a clue that maybe you're providing too long an answer. So one of the things I've noticed is I have one of the verbs is I can tell you what the upcoming games are. And right now I list 10 games, because back before the days of COVID, there were always 10 games on the weekend, and then 10 games next weekend, and 10 games next weekend. But with COVID, that's all gone higgledy-piggledy, and so it's not as important to say just 10 games, and 10 is probably too much. I should probably offer you 5 games, and then ask if you want to hear more. And I suspect, and I've been meaning to do that, and I suspect that when I do that, I will get a lower number of barge-ins. The other thing that comes from all these metrics is the notion of don't spend time on things that people aren't using. So, you notice. Let's see if we can. Customers, total customers. Total intentions. Yeah. So here we have a whole bunch of intentions. But if we come down, and I'm just trying to see if it will give me. Let's see, where is it? Okay. So you see that I've got a bunch of intentions that are being used a lot, and then some that aren't being used at all. So like clean sheets. I've got 30 customers or so who are asking about clean sheets. There are 40 customers who are asking about, referees. But then I've got 1,500 using fixtures. Now, I used to be a referee, so I quite like asking about referees. I think it's interesting. But apparently most people don't. So it's as much as I like the fact that I've added all these new features, if people aren't using them, I shouldn't waste my time on them. And so I've considered adding some more statistics, but having seen this analysis, I'm probably not going to. So you can spend all kinds of time on these systems, but and if it's just for you, that's great. But if you're wanting to see what people are using, if you're wanting to provide a service to people, see what they're using. So that's pretty much it. So you know, in summary, think about how a user is going to interact with your skill. Practice that interaction with another person, and try to look for all the variety you can provide to the system. You know, when I've got 18,000 users, one assumes that they're not getting bored, so one assumes that I've done something right there. And that's kind of it. Does anyone have questions?
Thank you for the demo. It was awesome. How many hours would you guess that you've put into this, and how much of it was design versus speech?
I think I don't necessarily want to know how many hours I put into this. I originally wrote it in Node just because I'd never written anything in Node, and I wanted to try it. Last year I rewrote the whole thing in Python, and converting it was actually fairly quick. I mean, the whole skill. Let me see, where's my mouse? You know, the whole skill is less than 900 lines of code, and there's probably things I can do to make it even smaller. But it's 900 lines of code is takes a while. This wasn't the first skill that I wrote, so I got to practice on the voice model for other things. The first skill that I wrote was a skill called more screen time, and I had a young son, and for those of you who have kids, screen time is currency, and so you know, and many of us as parents end up giving up on that. But you know, if you're in that stage where you're saying, you know, your kid can have, you know, X hours or X minutes of screen time, then they ask for more. And often, and I got to the point where I was tired of saying yes or no. So I actually wrote a skill that listed the chores that I wanted my son to do. And he could say, you know, Amanda asked for more screen time. And based on the time of day and the day of the week, it would ask me if he had done certain chores. And if he had, it would say, yes, you can have more screen time. And if he hadn't, it would say, no, go do your chores. And at one point, actually, my son said, Dad, are you telling me that the Xbox, that Amanda talks to the Xbox when she says, no, you can't have more screen time? And I paused for a moment and I said, yes, son, that's exactly what I'm telling you. But child-related skills are difficult. One of the things that has helped in this is that it's very pattern based. So you know, every one of these handlers, you know, has a pattern. It's like the welcome handler, and you say, you know, can I handle this? And then if I can, you know, handle it. And each one, you know, I load some suggestions, I load the table if I have to, and then, you know, I build a speech thing, and I go on. If you look at goals is you know, very similar. You know, can I handle it? Yep, I can handle it. You know, and here's where I remove suggestions. So if my array of prompts has goals in it, and I'm asking about goals, then delete that prompt. So I don't ask you, I don't turn around after telling you the goals and say, hey, you could also ask about goals. So it's pretty, that part's pretty straightforward. The voice model, is tricky, because one of the things is the Lambda you get to just do on your own. Amazon has no visibility into that. They in fact cannot see your Lambda, so you can do whatever you want with that. When it comes, however, to the voice model, you make changes here and test it and build it, and then you submit it for certification. There are all kinds of ways you can, fail certification. So you have to be fairly careful. But again, this skill, as much as I like it and it's made me some money, it's very simple. It's ask a question, I give you the answer. Ask another question, I give you the answer. So it's very pattern based. So once I got the first couple of verbs in place, getting the next ones was pretty simple.
So Amazon almost had no videos at reInvent for Alexa, and they dropped the certification. Any conjecture as to?
Well, yeah, I do have some. I mean, I've been to most of the reInvents, and as a community hero, we get advanced insight into things that are going on. AWS tends to view Amazon as more part of the retail experience than the AWS experience. So there are some people who say that Alexa shouldn't be at reInvent at all. It should be, a retail conference. Now, I strongly disagree with that, but so be it. In terms of the certification, I think the part of the consensus was that the specialty certifications are quite hard. So, like, I don't know if you've ever looked at the security specialization or the advanced networking specialization. Those are bears, and I think people thought that the Alexa certification was essentially too easy. I studied a lot for that test, even having written a bunch of skills. So I'm not sure it's that easy, but I think people thought it didn't belong as a specialty test. But I'm disappointed that they got rid of it. I mean, in terms of the future of Alexa, they are selling a ridiculous number of these devices, and there's 100,000 or more skills. It's a whole ecosystem of light bulbs. I mean, most of the light bulbs in my house are now controlled, by the system by Amanda. So it's not going anywhere. They continue to roll out devices. Some of them are more popular than others. The Alexa Auto seems to have not done so well. There's Alexa Clock, which is dead simple, but really quite nice in that if you create a timer, it will light up the part of the clock based on how much time is left to go, and that's really handy. And that device is only like $25. So I think it's here to stay. I'm hoping they do something with the certification, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see Alexa broken out for its own conference at some point. But on the other hand, who the hell knows what's going on with conferences in general? We keep asking our contacts, is reInvent going to happen this year? Is it going to, and the answer is we don't know, but it's likely to be hybrid. So,
the AWS versus retail Amazon makes sense.
Yeah. But you can do so many things with it. I mean, it's like, the sort of quirky answer that I when I asked about Battlestar Galactica, that was something I just added this afternoon. You have actually. Let me just see if I can have. Oh yeah. You can have blueprints, so you don't have to do any coding at all. I just said, is Battlestar Galactica real? And I mean, it's really, this simple. And then I write, here's the question, and here's the answer. And Star Trek real. Oh, I didn't say this. What do you think about The Expanse? I'm also a huge Expanse fan, and Alexa would have said built-in Luda, which is if you're an Expanse fan, you love it. But then you can. This is actually my son's name, so who is Ron Wang Tarbox? He's a trash goalkeeper. So you can do all kinds of fun things, and if you have one of these devices, you can add interesting answers. Back when people were doing what's the house beat where you stay in someone else's house. I'm totally just blanking on the servants. B&B. What's the
Airbnb?
Yes, so sorry. Yeah, geez, brain fade there. One of the things that people could do using these skill updates is you could put in things like, where do you keep the spare key, or what's the Wi-Fi password, and so you could customize your house's response to certain questions. So there's sort of no end to things you can do. And so I'm kind of thinking of my next idea. Actually, for my next idea, one of the things that that annoys me about Alexa is if my office is upstairs. If I go downstairs and put something in the oven and say, Amanda set me a 15-minute timer, and then I come up to my office, the timer goes off down in the kitchen, and I don't hear it. And so I'm actually trying to work on a way to have Alexa notice where I'm at and send a timer to where I'm at rather than where I initiated the timer. But that's slow going. But anyway.
I use Alexa on my phone for that.
Yeah. But and I'm still waiting for it to be on the watch. But
Yeah, that'll be awesome. Then you don't have to have it at your home. You can just carry it around with you, getting everything you need right from your watch. That'll be like the clash between Apple and Amazon then.
Right. Well, the other thing is actually a friend of mine who works at, who's actually the creative director over at Audible on Alexa. She had a pair of Amazon glasses for Alexa, and you can actually buy frames that have an Alexa built in to the I don't even know what these called, the sidebar for the glasses. And I played with it, and at first I thought, well, this is the dumbest idea I've ever heard. And then I played with it for a little bit, and it's like, this is a little compelling. But it was, at the time, it was only available for Android, and having Amanda on my glasses seemed just a little too geeky even for me.
Yeah, that's intense. That's a lot of Alexa action. On your wrist, on your glasses, at your house. Oh, man.
Right. So,
well, sweet.
But, if there's any, if you ever have a thing that you do a lot of, write a skill for it. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I don't know if there's probably skills already built for this. Like if you had like a Tesla or whatever, you could like start your Tesla from your Alexa. I don't know. There's like random ideas like that you could build with them.
Well, a lot of those things, do exist, and there's a whole category of skills that do account linking. So you can link your Amazon account, say, to your Domino's account, and then say, Alexa, order me a Domino's. And there are need to be protections in there, but you can do that. There's the there's the Alexa car kit, and you can actually make your own smart device. That's well beyond what I want to do, but they're getting into all kinds of interesting areas.
Yeah, have you seen those smart mirrors where they hooked up an Alexa? They just took like a piece of glass and made it like 70% transparent or like 70% reflectives. So then you would have like the screen, like a TV or something in the background, and then it would be like basically wired up to Raspberry Pi that would be running your Alexa on it, and then you could have whatever skills going on. Like, Alexa, show me the weather, and then it would show the display of the weather on the TV while you're looking at the mirror.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, it's funny. I have Prime, Amazon Prime Video, and the remote control there has Alexa built in, and so I take the remote and I say the Expanse, and it'll put up the Expanse. And I just bought my kids some Bose headphones, the QC35s, and oh my God, they're great. I like my 25s, but the 35s are even better. And if you've got $400 burning a hole in your pocket, the 700 series is incredible.
Oh,
but
wow.
the new series, they have Alexa built into the headphones, so you can just say, Alexa, what's the weather?
Right into the headphones. Well, sweet. Thanks for coming on, Brian. This has been really awesome. I learned a lot about Alexa. I'm gonna go back and probably watch it again,
Okay.
so I can completely focus
I'll
on
say,
it.
if people have any, actually, let me switch back to my other my intro screen. If people have any questions, you can contact me. My website is briantarbox.org. You can learn about community hero stuff. I used to be a dolphin trainer.
Yeah, we need a whole meetup just to talk about that.
So.
Yeah, just to talk about the dolphin training. You should do like a whole talk on that. That'd be awesome. Just like nothing about tech, just like a super interesting previous life. I imagine that sounds really cool.
I could talk about dolphins for a long time,
Yeah.
and I'd be happy to if anyone wants it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, right on. Yeah. Anybody on the stream, definitely go check out the Boston AWS Meetup group. Yeah, Brian, you guys have like awesome stuff going on, like Jeff Barr on there and everything like that. So really appreciate you coming on to the talk.
Well, this is my pleasure. This is sort of the, you got to make the most of COVID, and in Boston we've been meeting every other week, but it's great to reach out, because before COVID I wouldn't have possibly been able to talk with y'all. So.
Yeah, the silver lining, right? Like doing all the online meetings and stuff. Yeah. Well,
okay.
sweet.
Well, awesome. And if people want to find me on LinkedIn, please feel free. And if you have questions or ideas for skills, I'm always looking. And actually, I'll say, if anyone has an idea for a skill and wants some help, or would like to offer help on a skill, and that's a great resume builder, message me.
Yeah, right on. That would be really awesome to get like hands-on with somebody who already knows how to build a skill and go into it deep.
Yeah. Okay, sounds good.
Sweet. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream, and I just want to give a call out. Anybody else who's on, there is gonna be a talk in about a month on some serverless technology going and talking about the future of IT with serverless, with the guy named David Soul, who's an AWS architect, and also runs a meetup group himself. So check that out. Otherwise, we'll see you guys. Have a good night.
All right. Good night.
Sweet.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. I just ended the